Well, good afternoon. And Tanya, congratulations on another great forum. And I've been reflecting a lot on last year and what I said last year and how I feel about what I said last year and what I should say today. And I'm still trying to work it out, but I'll get there, I'm sure. I am more convicted, more concerned, more determined now than I was a year ago that we start to turn our attention to how do we really make progress along the lines of driving creativity and innovation in our workplaces. And at the same time, there's many other issues and pressures that we're feeling at the workplace level. We've got gender diversity, we've got accommodating the Gen Ys and their expectations, we've got a changing culture mix of people entering the workplace, we've got new technology, we've got the need to be environmentally sustainable, financially sustainable. We've got so much happening, and I think we need to sort of pause and reflect a little bit about what drives what happens at the workplace level. And that, in a very simplistic sense, is management. It's the bosses across workplaces who define the fate, the environments of the people at work. And I think we need to start to amplify the conversation about the nature of the kind of leadership, culture and management practices we want to see in our workplaces if we truly want to be creative, innovative and productive. And I add productive deliberately because productivity, as you'll all know, in the last 12 months in particular, has become a huge area of concern and discussion. And I'm going to try a little experiment here. This is dangerous, so I'll try it, okay? And this is the question I'm going to ask you to answer. So if 100% is your organisation is performing 100% to its potential, we are just fantastic. We are aligned, executing, achieving our objectives, enjoying our work. Really, it's just phenomenal. And 0 is terrible, okay? I'm going to ask you to put your hand up and be honest. I should get you all to shut your eyes, but if you believe that your organisation is less than 50% of its potential, put your hands up. Come on, hands up. Okay, thank you. Let's say, and there's probably around 35% of the audience who just put their hands up. So let's say less than 60% of its potential. Performing 60%, less than 60% of its potential. Okay, so might have lost the first group, but we're sort of getting around half. And the interesting thing is that when I ask that question of a lot of organisations, they own up to the fact, and this is leaders, people within them, own up to the fact that they're operating at around 55, 60%. And then I talk about, have you ever experienced 80? Do you know what it's like to really be in an environment which is really high performing and feeling as though everyone is contributing to their potential? And this is the question, and this is where I believe the heart of the productivity opportunity is for us. It's to move the effectiveness of our workplaces from where they are today to where they could be. And I think to Troy's description, it's to be honest and confront the barriers to high performance. And a very simple way I call the barriers the hard conversations. There's a reluctance in management to have the hard conversations. So let me talk about a few. We've talked today about the importance of purpose, clarity of purpose. Well, when you are clear about your purpose, you also have to have a conversation, therefore, about what you stop doing. So one of the things that we all struggle with in our organisations is getting focused and saying no to good ideas. When you look at what Steve Jobs did to save Apple, we always talk about the iPod and the new innovations. But the foundation of Apple's return to success was that Jobs was clear about purpose and he cut 75% of the product line. Even products that were innovative, like the Newton handheld device. So it's easy to say, let's get clear about our purpose and our focus, but it involves very hard conversations because there'll be things that you do that you're going to have to stop doing. Because saying yes to everything, saying yes to good ideas, and let me tell you, there's nothing harder, in my experience, than saying no to good people who have good ideas in the name of being consistent with purpose and consistent with our focus. Now, all of this in terms of productivity and opportunity and potential is really heightened today. It's heightened today because of the drivers of the economy. The drivers in the economy are very much the same as they've always been. The knowledge that people have and the connections that they make. I know there's a lot of others, but at the heart of it, it's what people know, their passions, their ideas, and how they connect with others. That's fundamentally at the heart of this. What's changed in the last 10, 20, 30 years that affects all generations is that we now have access to knowledge that we couldn't get access to before. And I think it's fair to say that the ability to acquire knowledge, to really search out and find things that are of interest to you are magnitudinally greater than they were 10, 20, 30 years ago. And similarly in connection, when I started work 30 years ago, I'd talk to maybe 5 people a day in my job. Now you can communicate with many, many people a day. So both those things, both knowledge and connection, are now significantly greater than ever before, which means the potential of people is greater than ever before, which means the potential of your organisation is greater than ever before. And so we have to really start to think about what's possible. So another aspect to the way we look at our management philosophy is budgeting and planning. So we might build our plans saying, what did we do last year? And let's add, say, GDP growth rate. Or let's pick something or pick a number that we think we can achieve. Or you might look at a competitor or somebody else in your space and say, what are they doing? Do we use them as a benchmark? Well, that's fine, and both those perspectives have their place. But really in this world, the planning process, the leadership process, has to be to ask what's possible. And asking what's possible is a question that doesn't get answered in the executive room. It's answered by people every day doing the work in the organisation and getting them a voice to express the barriers to high performance, the barriers that get in the way of the organisation being as good as it can be. And so this has really got significant consequences for the way we've been conditioned to manage. We've been conditioned to manage with an industrial age mindset for the most part. And the Gen Ys, my view is the Gen Ys are just what we wish we could have been but didn't have the opportunity to be. And in fact, I think we've made a lot of statements today that I would challenge as being coloured by our own mindset. And it underscores this question of mindset. Bless you. For example, you need to turn off your technology in order to think. Well, my view is that's a very baby boomer, or perhaps I'm not going to say Gen X, but a very baby boomer way of thinking. I say to my Gen Y daughters, I've got to turn off my phone to get a bit of space on the weekend, and they just look at me and go, why? So they have a very different view of these things, and we've got to be very careful about passing judgment. Turn off the phone. So it's a Gen Y, I'm sure. So look, the point here is that we've been conditioned to think in a particular way when it comes to our role as manager. We've been conditioned to control. Hierarchical, siloed, divided organisations encourage control. We've been encouraged to not make mistakes. That's fine. You don't want to make mistakes too often, but it gets in the way then of innovation. So we have to be very clear about things where we have the knowledge and experience, where mistakes we have to be careful about, and we also have to encourage people to go into new spaces and try new things. And the other big one, which really I think we've got to be careful with, is that we've been conditioned to need to know the answer. And this is really the problem with creativity and innovation. And that is this fear of being seen to not know the answer. I'll never forget when I was at IBM, my job was to set up this new division of the company. It was being spun off as a separate organisation. I had to negotiate with each of the leaders of the core business to let go of their function and give it to me for this business. And I can remember one executive who drove me crazy because he always knew the answer to everything before I even had a chance to open my mouth. You know, the know-it-all. The know-it-all person who you almost dread meeting with them. And I was really, really frustrated at one point, and I was talking to a peer of mine, and I said, I dread meeting with Herb. He knows the answers to everything before I even ask the question. I could ask the guy a question about nuclear physics and he'd know the answer. And my friend paused and looked at me and said, "Steve, I hate to tell you, Herb has a degree in nuclear physics." The problem is that over time our knowledge becomes something that gives us self-esteem. And when it's self-esteem, it means that we act with certainty. We have to be right, we act with certainty. And that stifles creativity and innovation, because the truth is, if there's one thing we need to do, is be prepared to let go of everything we know. We need to be prepared to become learners who still have expertise. I'm not saying give up your expertise, give up the years of knowledge you have. I'm saying stay curious. Stay curious. But fundamentally, the most important thing here is this move to and it was said, I think Simon this morning said, we've got to move away from being self-centered to thinking about self first to thinking about community first. I would say to you that the leadership models we've been taught, that have been modelled, that have been inculcated in our culture and our workplaces, is really one that is control-oriented and therefore self-centric. And for us to get the best out of people, for us to capture the potential of our people in the workplaces we're in, we have to bring out the best in them. And that means really dedicating ourselves to their success. Moving from being the star player to being the head coach. Realising the time the management is actually on the field, in front of customers, is trivial relative to the overall organisation, and that therefore the best investment in the management's time is to make their people great and to get the barriers out of the way and to do strategy in a way that I think Troy articulated, which is be clear about what we do today to create the future we desire. That is strategy. Nothing else is. Everything else is either just busy work or dreams that don't ever happen. Strategy is about the future we desire and what we are going to do today, and drive that as the priority of the organisation. It's a very different philosophy. It isn't going to happen by itself. If I say to you, slip, slop, slap, what do you think of? Right. Covering up. We need to find a way to take that concept and apply it to what it means to be a great boss in the world we live in. A boss that cares about the people that work for them, that treat that responsibility, and organisations who treat the responsibility of people management as the number one responsibility of managers, and is prepared to remove those who persistently are not performing as people managers, regardless of their technical capability. Because the damage a weak boss does to people in an organisation and the social network of an organisation is very, very significant. So we need to find a way to really paint this picture and take something complex and systemic. It's not just about training. It's not just about measurement and accountability. It's not just about awareness. It's about all these things. We need to make sure more bosses get more feedback from their people and are more accountable and more aware, more skilled, and more ready to be the bosses we need in the future. And they're those that are determined, dedicated to getting the best out of the people in their organisation. Thank you very much.